Okay, so let's check out the drums on this one first. So using the Yamaha 24E head, which is an Evans head. So there's either a Yamaha 24 with the Evans head, and then we recorded it with the Remo head. Different tuning. It was padded differently. So it's what you're hearing, and it's been processed completely differently. So what you're hearing is not necessarily the difference in heads there. There's tons of different variables. I wanted to give as many different flavors of kicks and snares as possible. So there's no point in having like the same sounding kick with a different head where it's slightly different. I really wanted to give noticeable options and changes in sound. So they're processed completely differently. It'll be a different blend of mics. And if you like the sound of that kick and you want to tweak it, play around with the pitch, the transient, or the tilt EQ to get different sounds. I'd rather give a more wide variety of options with the drum sounds than just have minuscule differences. So although it's just labeled as a different head, there's so many different things. Like, it's just been treated and processed in its own unique way to give as many different options. Anyway, so I tried loading in a one shot here, but I think I ended up just going with the close mic from Contact. I say from Contact, from the multi-velocity library. So this is multi samples as opposed to using the one shot. Snare using the Black Beauty, the regular one, not the alt mix. In these two instances, it's the exact same samples, but they've been processed differently. And there's a bit more of like a boxier mid-range on that one that kind of cuts through in certain mixes a bit differently. Brought the overhead and the room mics down a bit. Loaded in a sample. It's very quiet, but this one shot is from the September free one-shot samples that I did. So if you're part of the Middleton newsletter, you'll receive free one-shot samples every now and then. Toms, the Yamaha toms, pretty standard. Cymbals, going a little bit darker on some of the cymbals. So that's how the drums are sounding. No post-processing. The whole point of this kit, the whole reason I made this, is to make it sound good, to require as little amount of processing as possible with external processing. You can, if you want to, route this through your DAW and have more control. But for me, I hate having tons of plugins running. I just want the drums to sound great in the box, and I'm happy with how they've turned out. And there's tons of scope within the plugin itself to change the transient attack of each drum, adjust the pitch if you want, and to control over the reverb, every part of the kit, all that kind of stuff. So the guitars, these are from the new Kemper pack. This is the EVH 5150 100 watt. The MG just stands for merged. So this is profile number 1 for the 100 watt EVH. Very fat sounding. So when it comes to getting a guitar tone, a lot of these tones sound really great as they are with no processing. Anyway, it's quite a thick sounding tone without any EQ. It sounds like this. And then with some EQ, so I'm doing some basic moves in this one. High pass to around 80, quite a gentle slope. Focusing on 140-ish. And then around 2.2 is usually quite a problematic area. And just carving out some of the mids. And then up next, using amplified instrument processor from Dancorn F. This is a great plugin, really fun one. This bit's really cool. This sort of emulates 2 separate channels on an analog board, and the values on analog gear are never quite the same because it's all, real life hardware components. So the values can slightly vary to give you a slightly different kind of stereo image and kind of mix things up ever so slightly left to right. And you can just kind of cycle through these and it'll just slightly change the value on one side compared to the other. So let's look at some of the moves I'm doing here. Pretty basic stuff. I'll start off with the insufferable mid-range filter. Working at 4.3. I think there's probably a Sennheiser 41 microphone on this cab. If you go in the Kemper profile, I click on cab tags, it'll tell you what microphone was used, what speaker. in what cabinet, what year the speaker was made. If you go into amp tags, it will tell you what boost pedal was used. So I'm cutting 4.3, which is usually a spike in the Sennheiser 421 microphone. Putting a little bit just of a wider boost around it, which is what this control does. And then carving out a little bit of 6.2. Boosting a little bit at 4.8. And that is it. That is the EQ on the guitars for that one. Bass is nocturnal bass. This is pretty much the exact same kind of chain that I use on most of my demos where I've used nocturnal bass. Compression into the dark glass. Bit of EQ. Limiting it just a bit. And more EQ. And then up next, this is me just trying to fill out kind of area when I'm listening to the bass within the mix and trying to kind of fit it in somewhere where I can hear it, and that's usually kind of cool to do that with headphones on. Master bus processing is similar stuff, so I've pulled down the output on this fader just for the sake of making this video, recording my voice and the audio out here at the same time. So basic EQ, just taming the low subs that we don't really need. Ratio 3, attack 30, release quick. And this is usually only like a few dB of gain reduction. FG red, kind of Nolly, Taylor Larson style, fast attack, fast release, high pass filter to around 80. Ratio is 3.5. I don't go too aggressive on this as those guys probably do, just a little bit. And flatline clipping. And then Pro L to limit. Cool, that's that one.